recording button. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Eldon. With me is Dalton Grimes, and we've got a special treat for you tonight.
Yeah, so...
I know I say that every night, but I'm actually really excited.
That's because they're always special.
Well,
every week
true.
is something new. It's another time that you get to hang out with us, and we get to yell at you for about an hour.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about you, but this past weekend, I had a lot of fun with the M20 pre-release.
Oh, yeah, that was this weekend, wasn't it?
It was.
Huh, how about that?
Did you play it all?
No, I actually did not.
I got the 4-0. It was sweet.
That's pretty solid.
Technically, so we split in the fourth round because it was two-headed giant. Their decks were absurd. They just bomb mythic after bomb mythic. So we decided to ask them if they wanted to concede, and they did. And then we talked about packs and stuff. And oh man, it was great.
Sounds like.
It was all above
so
the board.
was your deck good or?
I had no rares in my deck.
Oh, solid. Well, what about your partner though?
Elementals. And I don't know. I think he may have had one rare, and it was the Icon of Ancestry.
The icon. That one. I guess that's a reasonable one.
It was okay.
I would play that card, but like I would try not to play it in limited if possible. But
we just had. I think we won 2 of the 4 games off of Chandra Emblem or
yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, it's like look at my elementals deck, and
then they all get +2/+0.
wins the game with Chandra.
Oh,
okay,
it's great.
So what are we doing today? Well, since the new set's out, as is our tradition, we're going to be talking about stuff that's important now that the new set's out.
Yeah.
So we both came up with a bunch of our favorite questions about stuff that's in the new set. And you can already see like the twinkle in my eye. You know this is going to be good. Dalton had some questions too, so I was able to review some of those. Those looked good too. They're top-notch questions, and I'm excited.
Proud of mine.
Yeah.
Usually David's the one here who brings all the questions, and then he tries to publicly humiliate me on camera.
No,
because they're absurd.
No, they're not absurd. Like this set is actually like the tamest set that we've had for quite some time, I believe, as far as like how in-depth your rules knowledge has to be to confidently approach it. Like this one is pretty tame. Yeah. So we'll start with like one of the ones that I thought was kind of interesting, which is like these artifacts that like brazenly have colored mana symbols in their mana costs. Yeah. Like what's going on here?
I love it. This not living weapon.
Yeah, okay. So that's a fairly interesting comparison. So let's take a look at this one in particular. You've got the Ancestral Blade, right? Now, when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 soldier token and then attach Ancestral Blade to it, okay?
You sure do.
So, okay, but what if we have our opponent has or maybe us, maybe we're just dumb. We have the Plaguer, the Plague Engineer, and we chose like Soldier, I think is what the correct type to be here was. So what happens in that case?
That'd be mighty convenient.
Yeah.
So with Ancestral Blade, you are going to see that artifact come down, and as the artifact, the 2-mana artifact enters the battlefield, the trigger will go on the stack, creating the 1/1 soldier.
Yep.
Now the trigger doesn't resolve until that Ancestral Blade is equipped to the soldier.
Yes.
And until that resolves, which would give the creature +1/+1, we do not check state-based actions.
Yes.
So even though, yes, theoretically there's a time where it's a 0/0 and then equips to a 1/1, no state-based actions are checked at that point, and so the creature will stay on the battlefield as a 1/1.
Yep, and this is exactly how Living Weapon functioned too, by the way. I'm sure those of you in the audience who remember that one, that's exactly how that worked too. So starting things off easy, no problems here. Next kind of interesting card that I saw was this little gem here.
I thought about making one about this, and I was
Only
like,
one.
nah.
There's lots of permutations with the Angel of Vitality. There's all kinds of stuff that works in kind of interesting ways. It's not obvious. So if you would gain life, you gain that much life +1 instead, right? So let's talk about some ways that you could gain life. Well, what if we had let's see. Well, how about this card? We've got the Boon Reflection too, right?
Sweet.
So okay, we got the Boon Reflection, we got the Angel of Vitality, we gain some life. Like let's heal, right?
Yeah.
Healing salve. Okay. What happens?
So theoretically, we have 3 life that is going to go as we resolve this ability. So our theoretical net gain right now is +3. Because both the angel and this, what was the other? The enchantment?
Boon reflection.
Both the angel and the boon reflection are replacement effects. We, as the affected person, or the affected object or thing's controller, we get to choose which order those replacement effects are going to apply. So we can either choose to double first and then add +1, or we can choose to add +1 first and then double. So if we do this, quote unquote, the right way, we could gain up to 8 life off of this healing salve, or we could gain 7. Either way works.
Yeah, 7 or 8 is both correct, potentially correct answers, depending on how smart the player involved is and how much they would like to gain some life.
Yep.
So,
and with these, remember that it doesn't work like triggers do. Whichever one you choose to apply first doesn't, quote unquote, resolve last. You apply it first, and then it happens before the other one gets a chance. It's not a stack using mechanism.
yes, that's correct. So you can't respond to I'm picking this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about this card? This card also from Magic 20.
Oh, look at that. A limited interaction.
Yeah. I mean, they're both in. Maybe both play in the same mono white deck.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
So-
How does that work?
This card specifically reads that when it enters the battlefield, you're going to gain life. You may.
Yeah,
have
we're
your
gonna
life
choose
total.
to do it. Okay.
Have your life total become the total toughness of creatures you control.
Right.
So when something like that happens, when a thing will set your life, you are either going to gain or lose life to be equal to that. So if your total life would go down, then you are considered to lose life to that total. If your life would go up, you are considered to add life to that total. So in this case, if we're at 5 life and the total toughness of all of our creatures is 10, then we will gain 5 life, which is great because then the angel looks and says, hey, I can't help but notice that you are a gaining life here. In which case, that angel will say, hey, how about 1 more?
All right.
I think.
Yeah. So that is correct. This counts as gaining life. Is like the short version of that. Loxodon Life Chanter, adjusting your life total up causes you to gain life. If you're adjusting the life total down, that is not gaining life. So if your life total would go down, but obviously you would this being a may effect, you would probably not choose to apply it in that case.
Probably.
But yeah, if you were to do that, you would not gain 1 additional because you're not gaining life in that situation. Okay, here's another one. We just keep getting sweeter and sweeter with these life gaining cards. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of this card before, but you get to reverse a lot of sands.
Oh my gosh. I love that reminder text there.
Yeah,
Each of those players gets
That'd
one
be really
back.
sweet. Yeah. I'm gonna distribute my life total to myself and your life total to myself, so you end up with 0, right? Because you have no life total. It costs 8 mana. What are you gonna do, right? You might as well. So this is the same as before. If your life total is going up, which presumably it is if you're casting this card. If your life total goes up, then you gain 1 more because the way the game accomplishes that is you get to gain 1 life. So okay, it was pretty simple.
Yeah.
Then we got this guy. This is the same thing. Doubling your life total would also be considered you gaining life. So you get double your life total plus 1.
Unless you're
there's
0.
There's all kinds of stuff like this. Target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. So again, the way that this happens is you gain or lose the amount of life that it takes in order to make Tree of Perdition's toughness equal to your life total. Then that would also interact with the Angel of Vitality. So basically, Angel of Vitality works with everything. Okay, let's bring the card back up. One thing that might be kind of still an interesting question after you have heard all these is lifelink. Okay, so I have 2 lifelink creatures, and I attack with both of them. Do do I gain 1 extra life or 2 extra lives?
So in that case, this would be similar to another interaction we've talked about before, and that is the Angel of Thune. Archangel of Thune.
Yeah.
And in that case, we've talked before about how even if multiple creatures are dealing damage at the same time, then you will gain life that many times. Even though your life total will only adjust the once, each one of those creatures says, hey, I gained life. This is a life gain event. Let's talk.
Now, this is interesting because this is a triggered ability. Does that change anything?
Oh.
It's not a replacement effect.
You right.
Okay, so what Dalton said is the correct answer and for the correct reason, but they actually had to add a new rule into the comprehensive rules in order to make that be the case, because Angel of Vitality is the first time that they have had this situation potentially come up. So yeah, whenever, if you would gain life, replacement effects mean if a source would cause you to gain life.
Yeah.
And because multiple different creatures with lifelink is considered multiple sources, that would indeed give you 1 extra life per lifelink creature that you are attacking with. So that's kind of cool. That was one that I had to do a little research on to figure that out.
Though if I remember correctly, the opponent in that situation is only taking damage once.
So the damage from combat all gets dealt at the same time. And so if your opponent has something that says, whenever you lose life, do X, or if you would lose life, do X, those only apply one time unless there's like double strike involved, or like, first strike creatures dealing damage in a different time than normal strike creatures. So that's kind of weird that those don't work the same way. But I guess that's, if that's the weirdest thing you've seen in the Magic rules, then come.
That's what gives people like us work to do.
Yeah, that's why the world needs judges, right?
Speaking of, come see us at Magic Fest Detroit.
Yeah. I was gonna use that later on, Dalton. Don't spill the beans on the Magic Fest.
Forget what I said.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll talk about us being at Detroit later on. Don't worry about that. So, okay, what about this card here? This is another kind of sweet Magic card coming out. Enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, right?
Sweet.
Now, I don't know if you've ever heard, but there were these one card mechanic that was a really stupid idea to print if your goal was to make Magic as user-friendly as possible. And that was this mechanic, Bestow. It comes up a lot, Bestow does. They just keep printing cards that have cool rules interactions with it. So obviously, the question pretty much asks itself. You got the Observant Alseed. You wanna bestow the Observant Alseed. Does that cost 1 less or not? With this card that they just printed.
Small aside, really like Bestow as a mechanic. I think the idea behind it was really cool. Like the enchantments that you don't necessarily lose when something goes away.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, the rules and policy.
See, this is one of those ones where they clearly did not consult with the rules team, or they maybe were like, hey, this is a really cool idea for a mechanic. We're going to print this whether you like it or not, so you better figure out a way to make it work. And they did whatever they could. But if you ever read the CR for this stuff, it's pretty intense. Don't go in if you're feeling lightheaded, because that might okay. So the answer to this question, do you know the answer, Dalton?
I'm going to assume it costs 1 less.
Yeah, it does cost 1 less. If you want to trust me on that one, you can. If you want to read through the exact process of casting a spell, you can do that too.
Yeah.
The way that it happens is you make the choice that you're bestowing before you determine what the cost to cast the spell is. So this one is actually kind of tame compared to some of the bestow questions, but that's how it is. The steps for casting a spell make you choose that you're bestowing it, and at the time you choose you're bestowing it, that's when it becomes an enchantment. And then when you determine the cost to cast it, Starfield Mystic is like, oh look, an enchantment spell, cool.
Yeah. And
so there
Starfield Mystic here, obviously a bestowed creature is going to stay an enchantment before, or even while it's, whether it's a creature, whether you're just casting it as it is.
Wait, seriously?
Right? because it's either an enchantment creature.
Oh
or...
wow, yeah. Hey, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter at all because like exactly what you said, Dalton.
But what about something like Danitha Compassion? Paragon.
Danica Patrick?
Danitha Compassion Paragon. She was one of the uncommon legendary creatures from Dominaria. And instead of saying that enchantments cost one less, she states that auras cost one less.
So this creature is the one that I was thinking that Starfield Mystic must have been. Actually, I thought they weren't enchantments for some reason. I forgot about that part. Yeah, they're enchantments.
And in which case, this still does work the same way.
So in any case, yeah, that works. They do cost one less for a variety of reasons. They would work even if they weren't enchantments when you started out, and they only became enchantments after you said you were going to. Okay, all right. I guess another kind of interesting question with the aura or the Starfield Mystic is, I play a aura on some creature, and in response, you kill the some creature. Mm-hmm. Do I get a +1/+1 counter on Starfield Mystic?
If I remember correctly, you will not.
That is correct.
And the only reason I know this is because I've seen lands destroyed with a spreading seas on the stack. Do you draw?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. So with this, it specifically says enchantment creature or enchantments you control have to be put from the battlefield into a graveyard. In the case where you have the creature that you're gonna enchant with an aura die in response to the aura spell is countered because all its targets are illegal.
So it's removed from the stack.
No effect, and it goes straight to the graveyard from the stack and not from the battlefield. So you do not get a +1/+1 counter.
Which obviously seems like a weird interaction.
Because it is.
Enchantments are kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it's something to be aware of if you're going to be there judging game nights, or if you're going to be judging your game day on Friday or FNM.
Is that what?
No, it's not game day. It's FNM.
Yeah, it's like some kind of house thing now.
It's something. There are events. You can do it.
All right.
Believe in you.
This one's actually really interesting. So like upside down cow card here.
Cow jumped over the moon.
Which player chooses where the spell or permanent goes?
So if you're really good, you can.
Yeah.
So with Ether Gust, when we're targeting the spell or the permanent that's red or green, and in this case, don't be confused, the spell also must be red or green. It's not spell and then or a red or green permanent.
Yeah. So that's an interesting, an important point to make. Mm-hmm. The spell has to be red or green, or the permanent has to be red or green. The red or green applies to both of them.
In this case, its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library.
Yes. So
the owner is the one that gets to choose.
Yes.
So our friend Patrick, during one of his pre-release events, he was like, Ether Gust, put that on the bottom. And his opponent was like, okay, and put the card right on the bottom of their library.
I don't know how I feel about that as a judge.
It's a weird one.
If someone were to do that in a competitive realm,
he didn't know. He thought it was his choice. Yeah. So it's not like he was trying to be shady.
Which it should be. Yeah, I would say like if someone said something like that in a competitive realm, I would think that might be a communication violation because the player is misrepresenting what their card does. They're representing that they get to choose which part of the library it goes into rather than the opponent. So
Ether Gust, would you like to put it on the bottom?
Yeah. That'd be like if you played a opt or something that has like and so reveal your hand, like you're kind of representing there that the spell does something that it doesn't do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting question too, I suppose. We'll get to some more questions like that when we get to the mulliganing section. Spoiler alert: we changed how mulligans work. Okay. Now,
reasonably.
Now, what about I bet you all saw that coming, right? See,
because it's all seen.
Yeah, get it? Because it's Artemis or all seen. Yeah. So okay, we're when I was going through the set spoilers, and I was thinking to myself like, okay, what cards could be interesting? And it takes a long time to read through the entire spoiler, and if you do it all in one sitting, you kind of like start nodding off after a while. And maybe you start skimming instead of actually reading. So like this almost happened to me. This almost happened. I was like, attempts is like, okay, flying, okay, whatever. They print lots of flying creatures, no problem. Draw 2 cards and discard, okay, whatever. They do stuff like that all the time. Yeah, this last ability is probably not gonna be that interesting. Boy, was I wrong, right? This is like, it's kind of interesting here. Whoa, when it deals damage to an opponent, you can win the game, and then like. But like they do win the game stuff before too, or a player loses the game. That's also true. Yep. But this clause here that if cards with at least 6 different converted mana costs were revealed this way, that player loses the game. So I propose to you this is one of my cards that I'm revealing. What do you think?
Cool. Looks like you've revealed a card with CMC 4.
Okay, so this is actually not a great example card. I picked the Fire Ice. I should have picked one where like the 2 halves were like different converted mana costs.
Mouth feed.
Yeah, whatever one you want to choose.
I just really love that there's a spell in Magic called Mouth.
There's also one called Mouth to Mouth.
Cast Mouth.
So yeah, I don't like the naming that they did for those. I think that's weird, and it doesn't fit with like the names of all the other. But I guess like the stuff that doesn't fit is the stuff that stands out, and that's like the risks that they take. So
that's why I know it.
I definitely like Magic taking risks. So getting back to the question, okay, I don't like them taking like irrational or foolhardy risks. Like if they would have showed me, like I remember when Batterskull was printed, I was like, man. I really don't believe that is a card. Like, I think the spoiler site must be wrong or something, because I don't believe they would be stupid enough to print a card that did that. And then they did. It was just like, or Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman was another good one. And then like Hogak too. It's like, when I saw the Hogak, I was like, man, they could just have made this card worse in like 3 or 4 different ways, and it would still be playable. Yeah. Even if they like made it worse, like if they would have made it not be the color. Okay. So. Rest in peace, figuratively, not literally, to my dredge deck that I was playing for 2 weeks, and now I don't get to play anymore. Very sad, right here in my heart.
I hadn't even finalized
trading
David
the
Stitchers
that I don't need anymore.
And now they're back home.
Yeah, well. So getting back to the question, the converted mana cost of this spell is 4. It doesn't matter whether your favorite half is fire or ice or mouth or feed. The converted mana cost is always the same, unless it's on the stack and you're playing it.
And that's the total of both sides of the card.
Yes.
Or the top and bottom of the card.
Yeah. So the Attempsis is kind of cool and all, but there was this other card in the set that was like even cooler than that, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of the same thing, right?
The not Gristle brand that looks a lot like Gristle brand.
It actually, I feel
the
like,
artwork, not the card.
I was gonna say, I feel like kind of all the demons, like this. What's the deal with this guy's like? He's got like these faces in his chest or something. Like that's.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
like,
cool.
He's got all his like agonies or something out there.
Makes sense.
So yeah, like with the embodiment of agonies and the fire ice is like the same sort of thing. The mana cost of fire ice is 2 red blue.
Yep.
Which is, if you have some other spell, like some traditional Magic spell whose mana cost is 2 red blue. I don't know, is that what Ral's there?
Ral's Outburst.
Yeah, there we go. Ral's Outburst. Some choose your favorite Magic spell that costs 2 red blue and isn't fire ice.
Ral is it is.
Then it will give you 1 counter for both of those, because fire ice's mana cost is 2 red blue, and other things mana cost is also 2 red blue. So that's kind of unusual. There's all kinds of unusual stuff that can happen with the embodiment of agony. It's like, okay, well let's just cut out the middleman.
Sure.
What about this?
That looks like it's got no converted mana cost.
Yeah, it does have a converted mana cost.
Or sorry. That looks like it does not have a good mana cost.
Does not have a mana cost. Okay.
Right.
So how about
good
this?
Distinction.
Yeah, no, because that's 2 different things. That's for sure 2 different things. But what about this? Hey, this has no mana cost too. we were gonna ban this, and then people liked it too much or something. Maybe some Wizards employees already bought their foil playset of them, so they couldn't ban Mox.
They knew the judge foils were coming.
Oh, no, that one for sure. Like they'll ban stuff that's a judge promo, no problem. So yeah, does this count as different from the Evermind, by the way, like with the Golem thing? Or
So
the
David,
demon thing.
when you made your Cart Clan Ironworks video, what did you learn about placeholders?
Oh, jeez. So the paying 0 is the same as not paying a mana cost, which doesn't make sense at all. But whatever. But the relevant thing here is that 0 is actually different from nothing. So Magic, taking its cue from the computer programmers, like it did before, 0 and not having a mana cost is two different things, which gives you 2 counters on Embodiment of Agonies, not just 1. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so if you're playing, what, Mox Amber... Is Mox Amber 0?
Yeah.
So if you have a Mox Amber...
Tandalite is the other one.
Can you go ahead and pull up the demon again?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have a Mox Amber in your graveyard... Oh, non-land, never mind.
Yeah, so theoretically the Mox should count as a land, but it does not. Okay. So next card that we're going to think about is Fireball.
Read the card.
It has an X in its mana cost.
It does.
So this is the same situation. If you have another spell that costs red only, then you've got 2 different ones. And similar, you've got this. If you have this in Brainstorm, that's 2 different. If you have this, this has hybrid mana in its mana symbol, right? Oh, come on, really?
Jester.
See, I thought I checked. Oh, and it doesn't even have
Rakdos
it.
Cackler.
There we go. That's the one I was thinking of. So yeah, with this probably has hybrid mana in its mana cost. Yeah. So this is different from a black, and it's also different from a red.
And it's different from a black-red.
Well, this is a black-red.
Sorry, a black and a red.
Yeah.
A 2-drop.
Oh,
one
I
black,
see
one
what you're
red.
saying. Yeah. It's different from a Spike Jester. This is kind of interesting. You probably don't have anything else with this mana cost, so this is going to be an additional one from whatever card you're thinking of combining it with.
If you're doing that crazy chaos draft with Demon of Agony.
No, I think Demon of Agonies is very much a modern playable card.
You think?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Calling it now. Called shot.
I could see that with like some Faithless Looting shenanigans.
You don't need a Faithless Loot. Like, you could easily get that thing up to being like, okay, so right out of the gate, you've got like, if this isn't at least a 3, then you're probably like not even trying. And this like potentially has the ability to get up much higher. So yeah, no, I definitely see this as being like definitely modern playable.
Okay.
Maybe not in the same decks that play the Arkham's Astrolabe, but maybe it could be. Okay, so Mystic Forge.
Yay!
Your top card is a. I don't know why I brought this up because I know I'm gonna need to bring it back up after. Like this is the card, right? You got the Darksteel Citadel, you got the Mystic Forge. Your top card is Darksteel Citadel. Can you play the Darksteel Citadel?
So Mystic Forge allows us to look at the top card of the library. We see it's a Darksteel Forge. We may cast the top card of our library if it's an artifact or a colorless non-land card.
Yep.
Regardless of what anyone tells you, we're not casting lands in Magic, and so we can't play Darksteel Citadel.
So this is very, very much the case. If this had been worded, you may play the top card of your library, ... Like, if they changed the word cast to play, it would be a completely different answer, and you definitely could play that Darksteel Citadel, but no, you can't. And it's because lands cannot be cast. Cast specifically refers to the process of casting a spell. Okay, that's kind of sad. I liked that question a lot. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Now this one gets into my like kind of more rules interest type questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So with this, I am going to create 2 tokens, and then like each other artifact choose target artifact, and in each other artifact you control becomes a copy of that artifact until end of turn. So,
Is that an old Ralzeric?
is it?
It's got the streak of gray hair.
I don't know.
He's not an artificer though.
Yeah, I think that's probably just a coincidence. Just because they got like blue shirt and red pants, like it's not necessarily Ralzeric, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. What were we? So we're talking about masterful replication.
Yeah, so we're going to choose an artifact that I control. Each other artifact you control becomes a copy of that artifact.
Cool.
So we're going to make all our stuff into copies of this. But I'm
Sweet.
going to do it in response to the thing entering the battlefield.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're gonna end up with some 3/3s anyway.
Yeah.
With no fun abilities.
With no ability.
Well, this one will have a fun ability, and technically they'll have the ability.
Yeah, but it's too late for it to do anything. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one's not that exciting. I get excited a lot about this sort of stuff.
Where do you think the meteor golem came from? Like, clearly it came down from the air somewhere. What do you think?
Probably the same place as this card.
Are we thinking like Transformers planet? Is that where meteor golem comes from?
I'm thinking more of a Superman kind of a deal.
Okay. Important questions.
So this is Field of the Dead.
Field of the Dead.
Now,
Moving on.
here's another really cool Magic interaction that you might not have heard of before. But did you know that if you have Field of the Dead and like 6 other lands with different names with Scape Shift, you get zombie tokens?
I did.
Yeah, well, you know, we kind of talked about this one beforehand, but yeah. So this is kind of interesting. The reason that this works is the same reason that the Valakut Scape Shift thing works, because of how triggered abilities happen in Magic. And that is, every time something happens in the game checks to see if there's any triggered abilities that should have occurred. And in this case, immediately after Field of the Dead and all its other lands enter the battlefield, the game is like, okay, any triggered abilities happening. And Field of the Dead's like, well, I have this triggered ability that says whenever me or another land enters the battlefield, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, you get some zombie token. So, you know, I entered the battlefield. Since the last time you checked triggered abilities, this other land entered the battlefield. Like all these other lands entered the battlefield, and you know, I have 7 or more lands with different names. So they all get zombies. So that's kind of cool.
Now, this is also an intervening if clause.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you were to play land 6 and in response to the Field of the Dead trigger, you tried to growth spiral, that wouldn't work out because there would be no trigger on the 6th.
Yeah.
Because it's an intervening if, it checks to see whether or not it triggers at the time that it would have to. So it's not like it triggers and then you check and say, hey, do I have 7? No, okay, I'm going to disappear. It checks at the time it enters too. So no growth spiral shenanigans.
Yep. So now let's take a look. Now, Dalton, you came up with some questions too.
I did. I'm pretty happy with some of them. So I present to you Diamond Knight.
Yes.
And if you follow Magic on Facebook at all, I've seen plenty of posts about how much Diamond Knight loves Diamond Horse. Have you? Or sorry, Diamond Mare.
I was gonna say I don't remember this
Diamond Horse sounds
card.
too
Generic.
too cliche. Yeah, I've seen a lot of posts about how these people are so happy together.
You cast a spell. That's kind of interesting, I guess.
And you got Diamond Knight, and he's on the other side of the rainbow.
Oh, jeez.
See?
Jeez. That's actually really cool.
Except Mare rotates out really soon.
Yeah, that is kind of sad.
So, anyways, we have Diamond Knight, but when our Diamond Knight is about to enter the battlefield, we notice that our opponent has a Humility. Oh no!
Wow.
How did we not notice this?
Yeah.
So Humility, the fun rules card that it is, it states that all creatures lose all abilities and become 1/1. And so with that Humility out, when our Diamond
Also
Knight
awesome
enters,
art, by the way. Humble Dragon and Humble Death Grim Reaper thing.
When the Diamond Knight enters the battlefield, it's going to enter as a 1/1 with no abilities, which is all cool and dandy. So then I despise humility, I get rid of it, it's no longer on the battlefield. When do I choose what Diamond Knight names?
You don't.
I don't. Why?
Yeah, because that's the way that it works. So the choosing a color happens as it enters the battlefield, and it didn't have that ability as it entered the battlefield, so you don't choose a color. And
Yeah.
so that means you never get to choose a color. It's kind of sad, but
And then
the Diamond Knight unfortunately has no color named for it, so you will not get +1/+1 counters ever.
yeah, and this doesn't fall under the policy of game rule violation where you forget to name something that should. Like if a pithing needle enters the battlefield and by chance I forget to name the card, like that would have happened theoretically when the pithing needle entered and it should have happened. But because this never had a moment where we should have named something, we can't go back and say, oh well, I'm naming it now. It just exists as a 1/1 vigilance.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
So,
But it has
Sorry,
vigilance now.
it does.
Isn't that cool? Thanks.
It got it back.
All right. Here's one that maybe you saw in the pre-release. Dalton, did you see this in the pre-release?
I did.
Okay.
I played a black-white removal life gain deck.
Ah.
And let me tell you, Epicure of Blood and Soul Mender is pretty cool. Just every turn you make a 3 life total difference. by
But
attacking one
you also have to make sure that it's like both players controlling the same. Like
Yeah.
it won't work if it's my Epicure and your Soul Mender.
Yeah, so if David and I are on a team in Two-Headed Giant, and I have a Soul Mender, and Dave has an Epicure of Blood, even though our collective life total goes up, in this case, David never gains life.
Yeah.
And so because David never gains life, his Epicure Blood will never trigger.
That's kind of stupid. I
Yeah.
think that should work. There was a time when it kind of worked, but yeah, it was way too much trouble to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, did this come up in your pre-release?
This did not because the cards aren't in the same set.
Okay, but
But-
it'd be cool if they were.
I still think it's a cool card. This is like the, hey, we're sorry about rampaging Ferocidon card.
Dude, this card, man. Okay.
Yeah, so Marauding Raptor, 2 mana, 2/3 creature costs 1 less to cast. That seems great.
Yeah, you know what? You know what creature would be cool to cast with this card out?
Yeah, it only costs 7 mana now. It's Polyraptor.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah.
So, Polyraptor has the sweet ability of Enrage. When it's dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of it.
Yes.
And obviously the copy will still have that same text, so the copy will have the same Enrage ability.
Yes.
Cool, we got that. Well, Marauding Raptor says that whenever a creature enters the battlefield, Marauding Raptor deals 2 damage to it. If a dinosaur is dealt damage this way, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah.
That's cool and all, but there's no May ability here.
Yeah, so like this would be really sweet because you would have like your infinite army of dinosaurs led by your infinite 3 dinosaur.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you don't get to go to the combat phase because that's, you know, there's no way to progress past the game. So you would have to like sacrifice your Marauding Raptor somehow, or do something else to break the loop. Maybe like prevent the 2 damage
Lightning
to
Strike.
Polyraptor, or do something. But yeah, you would not have a way to stop this loop, so the game would continue to do this forever, and it would be a draw.
Yep.
Unfortunate.
So for all of you people out there trying to take the advantage of Naya dinosaurs while it still lives in standard,
Yeah, there you go.
I got some bad news for you.
Yeah, it
But
does
if
not.
you're behind and you just can't lose the game, slam that.
you don't want
Polyraptor,
to lose
go
the
for
game,
it.
there you go.
Just
There
hope
you
your opponent doesn't have like a cast down or a lightning strike.
go. Well, I mean, like even so, you still got like at least one iteration of it, right?
yeah.
Well, maybe yeah. So that's still kind of good. Maybe the 2/5/5s will save you.
All right. Speaking of Naya lists, you might have seen Rian, Angel of Rebirth. This one
Not in
is
a
the
booster pack though.
It's the buy a box promo for M20, but obviously still standard legal and modern legal.
And modern.
And legal and everything. So, Rian Angel Rebirth is cool. Other multicolored creatures get +1/+0. Whenever another multicolored creature you control dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Sweet. Seems to be straightforward. What happens when my Scuttlemutt
Did you know this is a reprint? I bet at least one viewer does not know that this was a reprint.
I didn't.
I was playing when this card was printed, so like that helped me to know, but otherwise I have no idea how anyone would know this is a reprint.
So Scuttlemutt, one of the things it took me a really long time to realize in the pre-release was that it could become the color or colors.
Or colors.
Yeah, you could just pick all of them, which is great because in M20 Limited, there are a lot of removal spells that only target certain colors.
Yeah.
So like Ether Gust will only turn...
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so like Ether Gust can only get rid of, I think it's red or green.
Yeah,
So you can take Scuttlemutt and make it any number of colors.
They had the same sort of thing in Shadow
to
War
fit
too.
your removal spell. So if you were worried that maybe your opponent would have one counter for your destroy a red-white creature, you can have that backup ready by making it all 5 colors.
Yeah, or you can just make it all 5 colors for value, or like all colors except for black, so that like you can still Doomblade it.
Yeah. So if your opponent's targeting removal at your Scuttlemutt, and you in response make it 5 colors, will your Rien trigger?
Okay. So yeah, let's have a look again at the Ryan here. So this is kind of an interesting situation. It is a multicolored creature at the time that it dies. When it's in the graveyard, it won't be multicolored anymore, but this is a dies trigger. So you look back in time to the instant before that triggered ability should have triggered to decide what colors it was. So yeah, you do get it back.
Now, what if it said whenever a multicolored creature is put into your graveyard from anywhere?
Okay, so that's a little bit more interesting. If such a hypothetical card were printed, given the current rules of Magic, you in fact would not get the Scuttlemutt back, and that's because stuff that says from anywhere is not treated as a leaves the battlefield trigger, which means it's not going to look back in time at the characteristics immediately before the trigger happened. It'll look to see how it exists in the graveyard. So that's kind of a subtle difference, but it comes up from time to time.
Yeah.
And speaking of subtle differences, this is a really nice one. I was really glad that you brought this one. Otherwise, I would have had to bring this one.
But I do my job sometimes.
Yeah,
I was very excited about this.
That was a good job.
So, Bag of Holding. Obviously, any of you out there that play Dungeons and Dragons are probably familiar with the fantastic concept that is a Bag of Holding. And in Limited, you might see this card. You're just looting stuff away. Seems cool, seems great, whatever. But what happens when you loot away a Madness spell?
Okay, yeah.
I tap 2, I draw a card, and then I discard Circular Logic.
Yeah. Of course, with Circular Logic, its Madness is gonna cause you to discard the card into exile, right? So that's kind of interesting, right? You discard it into exile. Of course, there isn't going to be any spells for you to counter with it, most likely. So you're going to choose not to play it. But do you get to exile it with the Bag of Holding?
Yeah, so when you do, you cast it for its Madness cost, or put it into your graveyard. Mm-hmm. So you either have to cast it at that time, or with the triggered ability, put that card into the graveyard.
Yeah. So let's have a look at the stack here first of all, because this is going to be kind of a tricky tricker, here of a stack. So there's going to be 2 triggered abilities that happen when you discard Circular Logic. One of them is going to be Bag of Holding's triggered ability that says when you discard a card, exile it from your graveyard. And then there's going to be another triggered ability that's going to be Circular Logic's, when you discard it into exile, cast for its Madness cost. So if you are savvy, the correct way to put these triggered abilities on the stack is to have the Circular Logic one first and then the Bag of Holding. Because...
Is that Circular Logic resolve first?
No, yes, Circular Logic resolve
so
first and Bag of Holding resolve second.
And then Circular Logic. Sweet. Cool.
And so what that does for you is it lets you choose not to cast the spell and then put it back in your graveyard in time for Bag of Holding to exile it, which you will get to exile it. If you do it in the wrong order, in the opposite order from what I said, then what will happen is Bag of Holding is going to try and exile it from your graveyard, but it's not in your graveyard, so it's going to be like, oh, what's going on? Why did you wake me up for this? And then Circular Logic is going to be like, hey, do you want to play this spell? And then you're going to be like, of course not. Why would I want to play it? There's not even any spells to counter. So you get nothing. You don't get to put it in your bag of holding. But if you do it the right way, it does. Now I can hear the people saying right now. I can hear them say, well, you know, the savvy people. I can hear some people saying it. But Dave. When you discarded it into exile, because that's what Madness says. That's a replacement effect. That is not a triggered ability, which means that you will always exile it when you discard. There's no way to get around that. And when you put it back into your graveyard, it's changing zones. So shouldn't that mean it's a different object with no connection to its previous self and no existence before that?
Yeah, who would think something like that?
Interesting.
It was me. I thought something like that.
It was probably many people. Like,
which is why I brought this question to Dave. I was like, hey, Dave, look at this cool interaction I figured out. Isn't it cool? Isn't it cool?
It is cool.
Well, Dave, tell us. So we discard it into exile.
Yes.
And then when the trigger resolves, the Madness trigger resolves, it says cast it or put it into its owner's graveyard.
Yes.
So does that not become a new object?
And it does. It becomes a new object with no connection to its prior self, except for there's some exceptions to that rule. One such exception is detailed in rule 400.7i, which says that after resolving a Madness triggered ability, if the exiled card wasn't cast and was moved to a public zone, effects referencing the discarded card can find that object. So with this being the case, that would fall under that exception. So it will be able to find the circular logic in your graveyard, even though it has changed zones and become a new object.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I thought that was really sweet.
What a fun interaction. Isn't
Yeah.
Magic great?
Yeah. Hey, you know what else is the like real vanguard of fun and interactive Magic these days?
Hey,
is
this is an M20.
Narset the Parter of Veils. Oh, you're right. You're right. I must have been thinking about stuff that was not just the cards changing.
Here's the trick, Dave. Don't play card draw decks.
Boy. Or play the card draw decks and hope that you get to play your Narset first. I think that's probably what the game plan is for most people.
Have a lightning bolt up.
But, you know, for a lot of people, the Narset's in play, and then they like play their card draw, and then they like draw the card.
Oh
And man, boy, did that happen? Did that happen every now and then in formats where this was legal in occasionally?
I was judging an SCG Open, and I saw a player, player B casts Narset, player A goes, untaps, draws a card, slams fourth land, slams Jace, Brainstorm.
Ooh, yeah, get him with that sick value Brainstorm.
Jace player then doesn't draw 3, still puts 2 back. Narset's great. But what would have happened if they did? The opponent was like, yeah, sure, Brainstorm resolves.
Yeah, Brainstorm away, sir. So,
what happens?
Yeah.
So
ordinarily, it was a little bit of a kind of a situation.
Yeah, so if the opponent hadn't said anything and he was like, Brainstorm, draws 3, and the opponent's like, hold on, wait a second.
Yeah. Oh wait.
We got a problem here. That
Yeah.
would have been hidden card error.
Or like the Jace player would have been like, oh wait, you're Narset, never mind.
Yeah. So in that case, we would have found ourselves in a hidden card error.
That's really.
We would have had to
gross.
reveal the whole hand with the 3 to the opponent, then put 3 back to the library.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Shuffle, resolve, it's great.
So now it's different because
But
now hidden card error specifically says that if a continuous effect controlled by the opponent is changing the game rules, then you do not consider it to be hidden card
then
error.
in that case, you have violated a game
It's a
rule.
game rule violation.
Yes.
So how would you handle it in that case, Dalton?
So if we have a game rule violation in this case, we are looking at whether or not both of the players, did their part here, and we'll say they did. Both players just legitimately forgot about Narset, nothing fishy's happening. Player drew the card, realized they messed up. Well, not only is it their fault for messing up, but their opponent, as the one who owned the Narset, it's also their responsibility, and own and control, of course.
Yeah.
It's also their responsibility to try to stop their opponent from breaking the rules of the game. If they knowingly let their opponent draw those cards, that's a fun conversation we're going to have. But in this case, we have a game rule violation, so our most likely fix in this case is going to be to theoretically, we can grab 3 random cards from the hand.
Yeah, it's not that much better
It's
of a
not
fix, but I
clean.
guess it's better than before.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's you're the fix that I would go for in most situations would be to try to take 3 random cards from extra card draw player, brainstorm hand, and then shuffle those cards into the library.
No, you put them back.
Or sorry. Take those 3 cards, put them back, and then we're gonna play Magic from there.
Yeah, that's probably what you would do. Bear in mind that most of the time when this happens, it's only 1 card, so you're not gonna have to do 3 random ones. So it's not
gonna be a lot
as
scarier.
punishing. But yeah, so that's the situation. Not a hidden card error anymore, just a regular old game rule violation.
But you're gonna have to look and see, is this a double game rule violation? And in most cases, that probably will be. So don't forget about that rare double game rule violation.
I mean, it's not actually that rare. They did like change kind of the wording on how that applies now. So for most gameplay errors not caught, the opponent gets a gameplay error or failure to maintain game state. If the judge believes that both players were responsible, and it specifically calls out stuff like the Narset. And also like a Path to Exile, putting stuff in the graveyard. That's the other one that it specifically calls out. They didn't change anything on that. They just have those specifically called out now. So that's another thing that they added into the IPG now. So okay, here's one. I don't know if this is a policy question or not, but how big is Corpse Knight?
So Corpse Knight is a 2/2.
Yeah, the power and toughness is 2/2. Why is this a question? Who's asking this question?
Well,
as it turns out,
there's a fun print error with some of the cards in M20.
Specifically Corpse Knight.
And I only mean Corpse Knight.
Yeah.
It showed up as a 2/3.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
And so one of the things we've referenced before on this show, on this channel, is that cards are always considered to have their Oracle text written on them.
This is Corpse Knight now.
Regardless of the fact that the physical cardboard piece of Magic says 2/3, we treat that Corpse Knight as if it had its rules text, and its rules text says it's a 2/2.
Yeah, and I believe this is like all the non-foil Corpse Knights or something like that. So you probably will see it if this comes up. You might have to like tell people that it's not a 2/3, and that might be a feel bad moment.
Yeah, and that's something you'll want to do as soon as possible. So if you know you're going to be leading a draft, or if you knew that you had like a pre-release event or something like that, just during your opening announcement say, and just so you all are aware,
by the way, Corpse Knight's a 2/2.
Corpse Knight is a 2/2 regardless of what the card may say.
Whatever it says, it's a 2/2.
You know, don't wait until someone goes to combat and then gets blown out because you're like, oh, actually it's a 2/2. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Do your best. Be proactive here.
So now let's talk about. Did you know, Dalton, that they changed how mulligans work?
I heard.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of buzz about it.
How about that? They changed
How about
mulligans
that?
again. So with that, there's of course going to be like some other changes going on. So one of them is like, okay, let's say we mulligan to 7. Okay, easy.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Yeah, you
mulligan
mulled to 7 because that's what you do now. That's what you do now. And then your opponent's like, okay, you keeping, great. Which one are you putting back? And you don't have to do anything different.
Yeah.
So that like fixes that part of mulligan procedure. Like
Yeah, if you have your
well.
opening 7 and you're like, oh wait, I didn't put one back.
So how can people mess this one up, Dalton?
So there's basically going to be 2 ways that you can mess this up.
Yeah.
The first is you accidentally grab 7.
8.
8. Oh man. The first is that you accidentally grab 8. And then you look at all of them, you're like, oh,
Yeah, which one do I
that's
want to
too
put
many.
back? Whoops. Okay.
And in this case, our mulligan procedure errors are taken exactly the same as they were before. You're going to take a forced mulligan.
Yeah.
And so
that's actually not exactly how.
Sorry,
they
you're
worked
right.
before.
It's how one of them worked before.
Yeah,
You're taking a forced mulligan.
Yeah, you can't actually do the Thoughtseize fix now anymore. They took that away from us. So yeah, it used to be the case that you would have a choice as the player who mulliganed to 8, or the player who mulliganed to too many. Your choice would be that you either take a mulligan to 1 less than what you were mulliganing to, or your opponent would remove one card from your hand of their choice to get you down to the number that you're supposed to have. That is no longer supported anymore. So now you're forced to take a mulligan. And to be perfectly clear, what that means is that if I draw my 7 cards and I take a mulligan and then I draw 8 cards, now I get rid of all of those and then I draw again 7 cards.
7.
But I have to put 2 back now because I'm now mulliganing to 5.
Yes, because there was already the first mulligan, which David chose to do, which would have put him to put 1 back. But because he drew 8, we now have to force a mulligan to draw 2 back. Or put 2 back.
Yeah.
So, good luck, Scrub. So that part,
You're good.
yeah, that was an option that was available to the players before.
No more.
Now it is the option that is available to players before, is that forced mulligan.
Yeah.
So make sure you're aware of this before any events you do. Thoughtseize fix no longer exists.
Yeah, not a thing.
And then the other mistake
For a hidden
that
card
you can
error
do
it is.
Yes. For mulligan procedure error, Thoughtseize fix does not exist. Now, the other way that you could mess this up would be if I draw my 7, I don't want it, I mulligan, I have 7 again in hand, I'm like, yeah, I can keep this. Leyline of the Void in play.
And then you forget to put 1 back.
Whoops, I forgot to put 1 back.
So now you just
Dave,
like...
I don't want to put the leyline back, please.
Oh.
Do I have to?
What do you mean
Does
do
my
you have
opponent get to
to?
choose? Do they get to say, hey, that one goes on bottom?
Oh, I see how it is. I see how it is.
Do they?
Why would that be the
So I
case?
forgot to put 1 back.
Yeah.
Does my opponent get a look at them all and
No,
just
you
choose?
put 1 back.
Yeah. We're going to put 1 back. Obviously, be careful here. Make sure to talk to the players in this. This should involve at least a little bit of investigation.
Yeah.
You know, it's been announced for quite some time that Magic is moving to London Mulligan. I'm still probably going to, in my events, remind people at the beginning, just hey, remember, we're doing the London Mulligan. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that even players who are, newer to Magic or maybe aren't in and out or aren't following Magic content still have that opportunity to not fail. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
I want to make sure to try to protect that as much as possible, but mistakes can still happen.
Yeah.
So check with the player, make sure that they really did forget to put 1 back, and then just have them do it.
All right, there's one other mistake that I can see someone making, which is they mulligan to 6, they draw their new hand to 7, they put 1 on the bottom, and then they scry.
Oh, put 1 back and then scry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be a fun blend of both of our mulligan policies.
Yeah.
In which case, we have committed looking at extra cards. There was no rules reason why a player would have to look at that card on top of the library. So players committed LEC.
Yeah.
Fix it as an LEC.
Yep.
In this case, shuffle.
So yeah, no problem there. Remember that the cards that they put on the bottom due to having just mulliganed are supposed to stay on the bottom because they know what those cards are. But
Which I guess is another way that you can mess up. Player London mulligans,
and then
keep
they
the
shuffle
hand to
back
6,
in.
and then
Ooh, that
shuffles
would
the
actually
1
be
back in.
that would actually be kind of dicey. I would probably say no fix. You could ask the player what card it is and take their word for it, but I kind of feel like that's not as good of a fix as just doing nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one that I hadn't thought of before.
Yeah.
So just to make sure everyone's on the same page, by the way, we're gonna go over exactly what the London Mulligan is.
Yeah.
So the London Mulligan is the following. I draw my opening 7, and I'm like, okay, this is no good. We got a mulligan. So the way that happens now is I shuffle them back in, and then I draw 7 cards again.
Check to see if serum powder.
Yeah, the serum powder is like a corner case. We'll talk about that later. So you draw 7 cards again, and then if I like that, then I keep. But I have to put 1 of the 7 cards on bottom of my library. And that's what the mulligan is, and there's no scry afterwards.
You put on the bottom and then decide to keep.
What?
Right?
in a real game, people are gonna say I keep and then put one on the bottom. Like,
Well, yeah.
regardless of, and until you can come up with a rules question or a like magic question that like makes that difference relevant, then I will not consider it to be a difference. If you want to mulligan again, you can mulligan again. It's just the same as but with one more card getting put back on bottom every time. So if we really need that Ley Line of the Void to beat the Dredge players, you can of course draw 7, and if the Ley Line's not there, then we put them all on the bottom, and we draw 7 more. And if the Ley Line's not there, then we put them all. And if the Ley Line's not there on the third one, we can do that until we have 1 card in hand, and then we could like keep the Ley Line of the Void and like put all the other 6 on the bottom, and then the Ley Line of the Void would be in our opening hand, so we could start with it in play. You can mulligan to 0. That's legal, but it's not a good idea, because what'll happen in that case is you mulligan to 0. You know, you take your mulligan, you draw your 7 cards, you put all 7 on the bottom, and then your opening hand is 0 cards, and you don't have a Ley Line in it. So even if your 7 cards that you had contained a Ley Line, you wouldn't be able to put it into play, because that isn't your opening hand until after you put the cards on the bottom of your library. Then it's your opening hand. Same thing with like stuff like Gemstone Caverns. You would not be able to pitch a card that you were putting on the bottom for like obvious reasons. So okay. A couple of quick hits while we're working on because there is a couple of things going on, but let's see. Snowlands in standard, those aren't legal in standard, but we're not going to give you like a game loss if you show up with Snowlands because you thought Modern Horizons was in standard for some reason. We just like switch them out and say, hey, be more careful next time, even at Comprel.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Floating mana is now status information. What that means is that like the amount of mana that I have in my mana pool and what kind of mana it is, that is public information that I have to share with my opponent and have to represent correctly and can't lie about and can't omit things about.
Yep.
So as a result of that, the X, if you are paying mana into an X spell or an X ability, you're assumed to be paying all of it. That's not a shortcut anymore, because if you do not say how much mana is in your mana pool after you've played the X spell, then that means by default you have used all of it. So that's kind of interesting. Yep. It cleans things up a little bit. Pre-releases. In your pre-release, you get 15 extra minutes in deck construction. This mirrors the change that you will see at GP Detroit with me and Dalton this week. Where you get 15 extra minutes of build time during a limited event during release weekend. Hey, it's in pre-release weekend now too, and obviously that makes a lot of sense. So I'm kind of glad they made that change also.
Yep. And we now have a heart policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of large events I've been to, Grand Prix, Star City Opens, things like that, the head judge will tell the judges that, make sure people are on time to their matches, but if you see someone like shuffling to get to their chair or they're trying to fight through the aisle when the clock starts, have a heart. Yeah. Don't penalize them because they were 5 seconds late because there was someone whose chair was way far out and they couldn't get past them. So we have an official policy now that states that if a player is within 1 minute of the start of the round,
it's downgraded to a warning.
It is downgraded to a warning.
So remember, of course, that tournament errors, which tardiness is, are upgraded in the second occurrence. So if they get a second warning for being tardy, then that will be upgraded to a game loss.
Yeah.
Also, if they have a prior match loss from tardiness, like for example, if they didn't show up to round 3, then they go up to the scorekeeper to get undropped, and then they are 1 minute late for round 4, then they're going to get a game loss because the second instance of tardiness is upgraded.
And all subsequent instances.
Yeah, and all subsequent instances. So pay attention out there, people. This is
exactly. I know that we say have a heart, and before, like if a player is 10 seconds late, it's fine.
Now it is officially fine.
Now it's officially fine, but still make sure you're giving that warning.
Yeah.
Because
be sure you tell them. Yeah.
If the player keeps being, 50 seconds late, a minute 10 late, that's
and where that's going to show up is in like the last round, because they're tardy because they like spent all their time at the standings to try and calculate if they can draw in, and so now it's like, hey, By the way,
You're
you don't
trying
have to worry
calculate
about
your
drawing in
standings.
now.
Now
sucker.
you have a game loss. Ooh.
That'd be like a real like shoot. You know, speaking about having a heart, they probably wouldn't have one after that happened.
No.
All right. So and
I
then
think
there's
that's
one
all.
more change.
Oh.
No, there is. They changed deck problem. Yes, yeah, and this is actually kind of like one of the bigger changes. I'm actually going to refer to the exact text of the IPG, just so that I can be sure that I'm quoting this right. This is of course new to me, as it is for you. So I want to make sure that we have everything. So everything about like what stuff constitutes a deck problem is all still the same. So like if you forgot to decideboard, if you like filled out your deck list wrong. Or I guess filled out your deck list right and you put your deck together wrong. So you like grab the spell pierces instead of the spell snares out of your box or something like that. But you wanted to play the spell pierces or you wanted to play the spell snares. So that would be examples. All that stuff, what a deck problem is, hasn't changed. How we fix it has changed.
Yes.
Right? So the way that it works now is you locate any cards missing from the deck and any incorrect cards that are in any game zone. So like in the library, in the graveyard, in their hand. And the opponent chooses which of the missing cards replaces each incorrect card. So I would say like, okay, you know, these are the cards that are missing from my deck. So in that case, the spell snares, like that one would be pretty great for me because like all my spell this spell snare with this art is going to be your one in your library. Your spell snare with this art is going to be the one in your hand. That's not going to like change very much, but you won't get a game loss for it. It would just be a warning. If more cards are being removed than added, then prioritize the ones not in the library first. So, for example, this would be a situation where, for example, if you didn't decide board, right? So let's say that because of a sideboarding mistake in game one, I had a 14 card sideboard and one of my sideboard cards was still in my main deck. Or like one of my sideboard cards was still in my main deck, but there were 2 copies of it in my main deck. Because I, had a 1-in-1. That's not a great example.
You were playing against Mills, so you brought your whole sideboard in.
Well, no, I'm thinking like maybe if we sideboarded 2 singletons in, and I had 1 card in my main deck that I sideboarded out, and the 2 singletons are still in my main deck, and the 1 card that I boarded out is still in my sideboard.
Yep, you ended up with 61 in the deck.
Yeah. What happens in that case is we take both of those cards out of the library or the hand as appropriate, and then we put the card that's coming in the hand. Not in the library first, so into the hand. If the missing cards are with the sideboard and it isn't the first game, choose the ones to be returned to the deck at random from the main deck cards that are in the sideboard. That's pretty straightforward. And then if the missing cards were in the previous or current opponent's deck, such as like you pacifism their guy and then you stole their pacifism, issue penalties to both players. That's pretty standard. That was there before.
Yep.
So where this really shines is, let's say I draw my sideboard card. As long as I called a judge, I wouldn't get a game loss, probably. There was like a bunch of there was an exception to that, but there was like a bunch of check boxes that you had to check in order for that exception to apply. So that was great, but like if the card gets revealed to the opponent, then that's not great.
Yeah.
Because now it's, I couldn't have called a judge any earlier because I didn't find out about the mistake. This would be, for example, like if an opponent like plays a mill card and it gets milled, it's like, hey, that's a sideboard card, judge, and now I'm getting a game loss because I called a judge on myself.
Yep. Yeah.
So this fixes that situation because it's still a warning in that case. But there's still like one kind of loose end, which is that maybe the opponent saw the card before I did. Like maybe they like surgical extraction me, so they get to see my deck. Because people are still going to be playing main deck surgical extractions now that Dredge is banned.
Bridge.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, they've got their main deck surgical extraction in game 1, and they look through my deck and they're like, holy, wow, this guy is really taking things seriously against Affinity. He's got like the shenanigans in the main deck. Wow. So if the judge believes that a player might have made game decisions based on seeing that card, that is a sideboard card, then they can make the penalty be a game loss again.
Yep.
That is an upgrade that you have available. So that's a lot. I know that's a lot. Expect some like written stuff to come out sometime soon.
Yeah, and that's an odd one to look at.
It sure is.
The idea of the rule is that the opponent had to make a decision based on this information. But it's really hard to prove that someone made a decision.
Or could have made a decision.
Yeah.
Or wanted to make a decision.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, if I see, oh, well, David's got shenanigans in hand, or in his deck, like, maybe I won't play this artifact out because I can see, for whatever reason, that he can do something with it. I might be really confused, and I might play more conservatively.
Yeah. Or like maybe you'll be like, okay, so we know that you could potentially draw the shenanigans. Now I'm gonna play around that somehow.
Yeah, maybe just look at your opponent and say, shenanigans is kind of weird in the main deck.
It's like, whoops. Yeah, well, you could do that, or you could conserve your reaction. You don't want to like give up anything with your reactions either. So I don't know if that's something I would advise. But yeah, that's how it works. That's the philosophy behind it. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear them in the chat. Or in the YouTube comments, because this is going up on YouTube coming soon to a theater near you. But until that time, hope everybody had an awesome night. Hope everybody had all their questions answered. And we will see you again next time. This has been Dave and Dalton signing off. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yep. Take care.